Hello everybody, today I'm going to be talking about molds that I use here in my particular shop when I'm working with epoxy/resin. I've got some bigger molds. The one you're looking at right now is a 24 by 24 mold. It happens to be 3 inches deep, so you can go pretty deep with this if you want. And so I tend to use a lot more, or I'm navigating towards larger size molds right now, simply because what I'm making here now are particular ones that are used in a hotel display on a banquet buffet situation. And so with this particular one, I'm actually going to be making 2 boards, right? So like I said, we've got, if we're looking at this, just to confirm again, yeah, we've got, now to the top of this, one thing to note on these, the top of them is slightly angled, all right? And so it's a little bit wider on top than it is the bottom. So you can plan on, if you want that and you actually like that, then fine. But if you don't, you'll ultimately need to trim it down, and we'll talk about the various ways of doing that a little bit later in another video. So anyway, yes, this is 24 by 24 on the inside, and I have confirmed we are 3 inches in depth, okay? So this particular mold is from a guy in Canada, and I also buy some more silicone flexible molds, I'll show you here in a second, that I get those from Creative Elements. And both do a great job. Now, molds are expensive. They're very, very, very expensive. You can see the one I've got right over here behind me. That's actually 30 inches wide by 5 feet long, and of course 3 inches in depth. And so I've actually I'm making tabletops with that the hotel is using, and I'll show you an example of one of those that is in the finishing stages. And I also use that to make the equivalent of 2 30 by 30 boards that are used as side buffet tables. And I kind of just did that all on one mold. And of course, I put it on my slab mill, and I'll have a video coming out soon where I talk about how to use a slab mill, all the things to consider, the danger zones that you get into with slab mills, especially router bits and things like that. But that'll be another video. Look out for that. And so I ultimately got that down and flattened the whole thing and got all the excess epoxy off and wood off and everything, got everything leveled up properly. And then I cut it in half. So I ended up getting 2 30 by 30 molds out of one pour. And so that's a useful way of doing it. Again, like on this particular mold right here, I'm going to be doing this, and I'm going to make 2 12 by 24 boards, okay? And so they'll be used to display food and beverage items on a buffet. Kind of a unique situation that's not applicable. Now, I said before, these molds are expensive. They're expensive. Now, I'm sure by now you've probably watched enough videos to know that you can make your own mold out of melamine. I've got a couple sheets of melamine back over there that I'm going to be making a custom mold for a bar top that I'm going to be doing for the hotel and make it out of that. There's various ways of being able to make molds. The advantage of buying a mold and spending the money on this is only and only if you're going to be doing a lot of repeat sizes, right? If you're just sitting at home making 1 or 2 things, I don't think buying a mold like this makes any sense, because I think this one right here, if I remember correctly, was a little bit shy of $400. And so that's a lot of money, right? But I can make a lot of boards out of this, and this thing will pay for itself over and over and over again. That one back there was closer to $700, $800, right? And I have 2 of those, and I have 3 of these, and then I have some other sizes that are, like I said, the flexible silicone that I'll show you here in a second. So it's a big investment, and it doesn't make sense to go out and buy those things unless you're going to do a lot of repeat stuff with it. And so I would suggest don't consider those right out of the gate. Now, you can buy some relatively inexpensive molds on Amazon, and for like a 1 or 2 time use or something like that, and you're more than free to try that. Just don't expect them to hold up. Speaking of holding up, none of these molds last forever. Okay, they don't last forever. So it's not like you buy it once and it's going to last you for 20 years. No, eventually it'll wear out and start to crack, but I've yet to run into that in any of my molds, and I've probably made a couple hundred boards so far, of different pieces, I should say, so far, and I haven't had any issues yet, but I do expect to have them. So anyway, keep that in mind when you're doing it. Now, let's kind of go over, let me bring over some of the other molds I've got, and I'll show you those here in a second. Okay, so laid out here, you see some various examples of some of the molds here. I'm going to hit this with a camera at another angle where you can kind of see them up close. But you can see this one right here as I do it. That is, let's see what the size of that is. It looks like it fans out to be around, it's going interior, about 8 1/4 on the interior of this side over here. Looks to be about just shy of 7 inches. And then in length from one end to the next one, it's 23 inches. So that's a pretty decent size size pattern. Now I want to show you something else that's pretty cool. Let's take a look at this one right here. Right? You notice there's something in that one? There's something in that one right now. There's a lot of dust. That's what's in there right now because I haven't used this in a while. But notice that I took some clear resin, right? Just some clear deep pour, poured it into the mold, and guess what this turns out to be? This is a router template for me to be able to use when I want to do a combination of wood and the epoxy, the resin in there. That way I can get that balance just right. So once it comes, so I can get my board that's going into it, get exactly what I want to use using this as the template. Maybe I just want to do half of it as an example, you know, like that, just straight down there, half of it as an example, or whatever I want to do. Maybe I want to come down and kind of go like this or something like that. Whatever I want to do, however creative I want to get with it, I can do that. So then I would just trace it to where it's applicable, right? To where the wood's going to be. And then once I get that, I put the wood in the mold. And of course, the resin is going to do the rest of it, right? And so it's the great thing about doing it this way is you don't have to worry about that hole and everything. You get it just perfect and you do that. So I encourage you, if you do this, you'll probably want to do that. Now, here's, I remember before, I don't want to get sidetracked here, I talked about mold release. There's an example of the mold release that I'm using here. And like I said, you can just get that on Amazon. Works great, great, great. So let's take a look at this one. We got 12 by, I want to think 12 by 16. So that size right here. Here we've got some longer ones. Now, whether or not this is practical in most applications, there's some of these I bought that if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it. But I did. So anyway, I got them. So I got 25 by 5. And then here on this one here, it looks like I've got 16 probably by 6, okay? Now, one of the things that I'm going to start doing is building, remember I talked to see that larger one that was 24 by 24, right? So one of the things I think can be really cool is to take this one as an example right here, because what did I say that was? How many inches wide was that? That is 5 inches wide, and you had a combination of that one as well as this one, or just do multiple ones of this, and create a box, right? So now I've created a box, a rectangular box, that other board can sit on top of. Guess what do you think I've put inside that rectangular box, right? You got an LED light. So it shines not only through the sides of the box where you see the color coming through. Now keep in mind, when you're mixing your mica powder in there, you want it more translucent if you really want that to show through. But you know, you can do that. Hang on just a second. Let me go find a light because I'm about ready to start doing this. All right, so I had to step away from camera for a second and go find it. I run a professional video show here, don't I? But anyway, what's that? I was in frame right there in case you want to use it. My son was in frame and he just reminded me, and it probably caught him a little bit on audio right now. But that's all cool. Hey, we're rednecks here. We just do it how it flows. Okay, so you can see here's obviously the power source for it. This is what you do in recess lighting. So I'll be able to mount this right now as you see it there, showing it in the other angle of the camera. Right there, and I'll create a little mounting area down there and mount that to the interior of the box. Now, you may say, well, Barry, didn't you say you're making a rectangular box? Isn't it going to be hollow on the bottom? Well, yeah, if I don't do anything about that, but what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to, of course, put that on my table saw and route out some slots around it, put some 1/8 inch plywood in there and create a bottom to it, right? And seal it up and you won't see it. And then, you know, custom make route out some areas for the power, things like that. When I do that, I'll make a whole video about that, but that's just something to consider because I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you right now. You're probably not going to remember it all because I know I wouldn't because I'm old as a fart and I can't even remember what time of day it is and I have no idea what day it is right now. But anyway, so let me grab a couple of pieces for you real quick so you can see some of the pieces that we made in these molds as well as some other standby. All right, so these pieces right here, I also have a mold that is a little bit larger than that size. I have a couple of those, and I'll show you this thing up close here in a second. These are at the second stage of flood coating. So you can see there's like this one. This was actually at the first stage, so this one will have to be lightly sanded back down with 220 and then redone again. I've still got all my little icicles going on there, if you can see that right there. So these are actually were done the other day, and they've just been sitting in here. But as an example, you can kind of check out, you know, these particular boards. I think that's pretty cool. And kind of pull that one up here. And these were all made with the molds down here. You'll see in a second. There's one that's off camera right now that's actually this size. And that's roughly like a 14 by 14. And then you've got, oh, I love this. Isn't this thing beautiful? Let's take it like that. And let me try and get that framing. I'll do a reveal here, ladies and gentlemen. We like reveals on this channel. This channel hasn't even started. It's the first video I'm making of it. If you didn't know, I happen to have another YouTube channel that's quite popular out there that's unrelated to all this stuff. So I do have a little bit of experience, full disclosure there, in doing this stuff. But that's regarding home studio work, right? I'm a musician as well. Been recording and things like that for, gosh, going on 40 years because I'm old as dirt, as you can see by this ugly mug. And so I got a channel on that one. It's called Studio Talk with Barry Johns. If you're interested in doing that, you happen to be a musician. Now, this one right here, I think, is, if you noticed, I pulled that right out of that mold, right? Right out of that mold, because that's the mold it came out of. This one, if anybody tells you, you can't do solid black with mica. I got into this whole thing on a Facebook group. By the way, most of Facebook groups on epoxy and resin are very, very helpful. The vast, overwhelming majority of people out there truly want to help. You'll find me out there. I'm posting it all the time. Unlike a lot of other Facebook groups you get into where everybody thinks they know everything and they want to tell you they know everything, it's not the case. This one for the most part. But there's one guy tried to tell me, he tried to tell me I was wrong. You cannot do a solid black with mica powder. Now, I understood where he's coming from. Typically, you do a liquid pigment for that. I get that. I completely get that. But I'd watch another video, kind of like you're watching me. Well, I do the same thing and watch other people. And I watched a video and I saw him do it with this. And this is called Black Diamond. If I remember correct, it's Black Matte. It's made by Black Diamond, and it's called Black Matte. Now, if I think, I just got my peripheral vision over there, and my other son, Noah, happens to be over there looking at me like, what can I do for you, son? All right, my son, Noah, he's not feeling too well, and so he's a little under the weather right now. So we have our refrigerator for all our drinks and everything are out in the garage where I'm at right now. And my son, Joshua's back there helping me. I'm kind of teaching him how to do this video stuff at the same time. So it's a family affair right now, and pretty soon you'll see my wife doing this stuff. Because actually all of the tabletop stuff, okay, the tabletop resin, she does. She's becoming my expert finisher. You know, we're playing around with Rubio's Monocoat. We've done Odie's oil, got really great results with that. Of course, I use tung oil because all these things, they got to be sealed on the back because you're going to go into a food and beverage environment and you don't want that water to affect the bottom. Now, of course, like anything else, these boards like this, just light, warm, soapy water. You don't want to soak them. Just wipe it in and wipe it off, and you're good to go. All right, so hopefully you've, blah, 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 if I could figure out how to talk. Hopefully you've enjoyed my very first video on this particular subject on this channel, and I hope to have a whole lot more, and I appreciate you coming back and watch. So until next day, hope everybody has a great day. Bye-bye.